So thank you so much, Amin, and I assure you I will be giving short remarks, and I actually mean that. But I just want to thank the community for inviting me here, the Indian American Muslim Council, and it's a real honor to be here. The district that I represent is this area, so I represent the Northborough, Southborough, Marlborough, Hudson area, as well as the Acton, Sudbury, Wayland area, which are both areas where there's an increasing number of Muslim Americans, including Indian Muslims. So it's a real honor to be here. And Yasser had invited me to this grand opening last week of this reception center, and I was unable to come, but received the invitation on Friday. So thank you so much for your hospitality. And it's very hard to follow what Ajit said. Very, very passionate remarks, and I've learned so much today. But what I do want to communicate is that because of my work as a progressive Democrat, as someone that does a lot of work with civil rights and civil liberties leaders, I do feel that I am fairly educated on issues of concern to the Muslim community, including to the Indian Muslim community. And just a little bit of background on some of the things that I've worked for at the State House. Again, different from what's happening in Washington, D.C., but I would hope just as important is that when Donald Trump became president, I filed the legislation to ban a Muslim registry in Massachusetts. That was one of the threats that President Trump made when he was running, is that he was going to create a registry of all Muslim Americans, and so I filed the legislation to ban Massachusetts. And earlier today, I was at a meeting with about 23 Afghans who are living in one of the towns I represent, and the legislature just late last year provided some funding, which I led the fight for $20 million to help Afghan refugees, around 1,000 refugees that are now in Massachusetts right now. So I'm very proud to stand with the Muslim community, and legislation that my previous communication director, a gentleman named Mohammed Missouri, who is the executive director of Jetpack in Massachusetts, has asked me to file is, and this is similar to the theme of what Ajit was saying, is how does the broader Muslim community advocate for civil rights? And so in Massachusetts, there's an Asian American Commission, there's a Latino American Commission, there's a Black American Commission, but there is no Muslim American Commission. So that is legislation I'll be filing this year to create a Massachusetts Muslim American Commission. So I look forward to partnering with you on that legislation, and I would just say having the chance to read this report is extremely disturbing, and I really appreciate the Council's advocacy, not just for Muslim Indians, but for Christians, for the Dalit class, and for Indigenous people. I work closely with an organization called Aid Boston, which I know has done some advocacy in some of the rural and poor areas of India. So I'm somewhat educated about how many Indigenous people, Indigenous tribes in India are mistreated as well. And really what I would stress, and a few of us have had conversations tonight, is that it is so important in terms of the outreach and communication, obviously at the federal level, which Amin and Ajit talked about, but also with your state lawmakers that often have a lot of influence on federal officials. And also there are so many things happening in Massachusetts that quite honestly disproportionately are led by Hindu Indians. And I'll just give a few examples. Is that one of the things I'm very proud to see in the district I represent, which is 14 communities, is now many towns are celebrating India's Independence Day. And that's a wonderful thing. But more often than not, when I go to these India Independence Day celebrations, where they raise the flag of the nation of India, it's disproportionately Hindu Indian Americans. And so I would just say to the Indian Muslim community here, please make sure to show up those events, because I think unfortunately far too many legislators, white Americans, are not aware of the vast cultural, religious, and sort of racial, ethnic diversity in India. And that would really send a strong message. The events I go to every year are Diwali. Well, I wasn't aware that Diwali is essentially a Hindu celebration, and that's something that I learned tonight. But the celebrations that this community has, making sure that your elected officials are invited to really educate us about not only your contributions to Massachusetts, but obviously the very strong presence you have in India. So that is really critical as well, because the more understanding that local and state officials have, the more that our federal officials will be educated as well to speak out for the rights of religious minorities, whether in Massachusetts or United States or India. And similar to what Ajit said, invoking Dr. Martin Luther King and the trip to Selma, is that it's important to think that the reason that Dr. King was so successful with the civil rights movement in the 1960s, it wasn't just Black Americans leading the fight, though disproportionately was. It was many white Americans, especially Christians and Jews, that were standing side by side with Dr. King, especially from Massachusetts. And so please look to people like myself as people that stand in solidarity with you, that's an ally, and please reach out to me about however I can help. And so what I would say in just concluding is this has been a very powerful event that I've learned a tremendous amount. I look forward to partnering with you, and I know that many of you, from talking in between the speeches and the ceremonies, many of you are constituents as well. So please reach out to my office if I can be of any help. It's an honor to be here with you tonight, and as often politicians joke in Massachusetts, I know that I'm the last speaker between you and your meal. So thank you very much.